Hey guys, Manny CA here. Today I thought we would talk about a couple different ways to tune up your Ruger single action. And we're going to do one video. This video we're going to do on springs. Next video we're going to do a little bit on cylinder lockup and ways you can fix some of the problems that a lot of these, especially a little bit older guns, I'd say 2000s, 90s, 80s, had, that were prevalent in a lot of these guns. Because remember, these are just manufactured right off the lot. They got parts have to be interchangeable. You can't really have too much customization on them. So as what used to happen, they'd always have a lot of problems with guns not being tuned right. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to go through with the 44 Special here. This is a very nice 44 Blackhawk with the Bisley grip. And we're going to go through and show you a couple of different ways from some of the real simple. We're going to start really simple and we'll work our way up to a little more in-depth things you can do. We're not going to show you guys how to do a trigger job, a la, sanding your trigger and your sear and your hammer down, just because I think that's a little too in-depth, and that takes a lot of time to learn. You got to do a bunch of them before you could, I feel, before you can get to the point where you can do it comfortably without removing too much material and causing a dangerous gun or just having to buy another hammer. So we'll get started. Remember this guy, we did that anti-indexing paw where we were able to back and forth, and I'm telling you, man, for you single action shooters, you guys that do a lot of cowboy action shooting, that's awesome, because you're in a round and you're trying to load up. If you missed that click, you got to go all the way back around. With this one, you can go either way. It doesn't matter. So check out that video if you guys are interested in see how we did that. But today what we're going to do is work on the springs on here. What we're going to do basically is the hammer spring and the trigger spring we're going to talk about today, and ways to slick it up a little bit. As of any time we do this kind of work, I always use the, I've got my trigger gauge or my trigger pull, and I'll measure that really quick. Gun is unloaded. What we're going to do is, I always like to do this the same way, so I kind of tip the gun at an angle, and we'll put this guy on ready here. We'll clear him out. Alright, and we'll get our first pull here. There we go. And I had already done this before we started the video, and he broke at about 4 pounds. So we're at about 4 pounds with this gun, 4.5 pounds, and that's where I always like to do a couple of these and average them out. This tool will do that. Yeah, it's about 4.5 pounds, 5 pounds we're showing. So this is a stock gun. Nothing has been done to it so far. What we're going to do today, he's breaking about 5 pounds. So 4 3/4, 5 pounds. What we're going to do today is we're just going to show you a couple different ways to make that light. First thing you want to do, of course, remove your grips. We've got these grips already unscrewed just for the ease of the video. And when we open this up, you'll see we've got our trigger spring right here. That's this one right here that's hooked around the leg. These little studs right here, and they're on both sides. And you got your hammer spring right here. This is a stock hammer spring. The best thing about these guns is you can work on this without having to take this whole thing apart. Most of the time. I've had a couple vaqueros that you had to actually disassemble the whole gun just to remove the spring. But I'll show you what you do. First thing you got to do is, of course, you got to take out your cylinder. The first thing I do on any type of work I'm doing here, and then I take a punch, and what you do is you're going to cock. Always put it up like that when you're cocking it. Makes it easier. It drops the firing pin block out of the way. And I take my punch right there, and you're going to release the pressure on the hammer, bring it all the way down, and you should be able to slide your spring out. There we go. So we've got the spring out. Remember, this is under a lot of tension, so be very careful. This guy is trying to slip out, and I'll show you a way to push it back in. We're going to set him aside, and first thing we're going to do is I'll show you on the trigger spring. This will actually help you make the trigger feel a little bit lighter. What you want to do is you're going to remove, there's two of these, see, one on each side. We're going to remove both of these legs off of their hooks, and then there's a pin right here. You'll see that little pin. You can drive that pin out, and you can finagle this little guy out. You see how he's working over there? And you can replace him with a, what we've got here are the Wolf Springs. Now, Wolf Springs are great. They're already, you know, pre-wound up, set size, and we've got a reduced spring. We've got a 30-ounce reduced power spring for the trigger and a 14-pound hammer spring. So the 14-pound hammer spring is going to be this right here that we just removed. So what we'll do with this is you take your punch, we're going to, that just fell right out, push right out, and you can remove the original trigger spring. See? And you can see what it looks like. What we're going to do is we'll replace it with the Wolf Springs, and like I said, the Wolf Springs are the best. You can find these in, you know, Brownells, or just type in Wolf Springs, and you'll see the difference as to what they look like here. You can see lighter, really light. There. See that? So, and what we're going to do is replace these just like they went in, just like that, with the legs pointed down, because they're going to hook over the spring hooks over here. So you just slide it in, line up your pin, and sometimes they give you a little bit of problems, but not this time. I think we're good to go. See that? And that's it. That's all it takes. Something else that you can do if you don't want to spend the money on buying new springs, and I know sometimes money's tight. Tell me about it. We've got a lot of kids. You know, it's not easy, but what you can do is, a lot of guys also, what they'll do is called the poor man's trigger job, where they take and they lift one of these legs off and leave it hanging like that. That, not in my opinion, I wouldn't do that, just because there's a reason why that's there. The pressure, you see that when you're pulling, you're going to get some kind of loss of power, and I wouldn't advise doing it. A lot of guys do it with great results. Hey, I'm not one of them. So this spring now is installed. That's it. Very easy. Now with the stock spring, which you can also do, what I know guys will do is they'll take the legs and they bend them up, and they'll bend them right here. I'll show you. They'll take and they'll do that. Do you see what we just did? We've bent it up. See, now it has a little bit of an upswept curve right there. That'll reduce your felt trigger pull just by doing that. And you can do it even, you know, you can do it as much as you want until they won't grip on the little legs. Then you got to tweak the legs here to the little grip legs here to hold on to your studs. But you can also go the opposite way. If you want a heavier trigger pull, you could take it and just like opposite, just kind of bend them back down. You know, bend them down, and it takes a little bit of finagling with them to get it the way you want. And what you would do is you'd bend them, put them in the gun, try fire, a little bit of test fire, test as you go, and see what you like. So I mean, that's just how to work on your trigger spring, make it feel a little more smoother. It won't remove your creep, and the creep is where you'd have to do work on your hammer, and then you would have to Dremel or take some sandpaper and grind down some of the sear in the hammer where it connects to the trigger itself. And we'll go into that in another video. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to replace the trigger the actual hammer spring on here with the lighter hammer spring that we got. A couple of tricks you can do, and I'll show you how we're going to remove that, but we have to go over to a vise. Alright, we're at our vise now, and I'm going to show you real quick how to remove the spring off of your Ruger type weapon. Coil spring, we put the bottom end into our vise. You take a pair of vice grips and you grip your tool and grip the, let me show you what that looks like. See? Right there. We've got it gripped, and then what we're going to do is just push down, and I got to put the camera down because my hands, I need 3 hands to do this. And then you take and you push this down. As you push this down, your thing will fall out, and that's it. Decompresses the spring, and you've got your old spring here. You grab the new spring, install it just the opposite way. Here's our new spring. Slide it right over. You're going to compress it. Put that on there. Put your punch back. Simplest way I could think of doing this without having the spring going flying everywhere. Alright, we're back at the bench now, and I'll show you the difference in the spring sizes. This loose spring is the one we just took off. That's a stock spring. You can see how much thicker it is compared to our lighter spring. Some guys will take this and clip a couple coils off the bottom until they get the lighter spring they want. I wouldn't advise that, just because you're dealing with primers and who knows what kind of primer cups you guys are using, heavy, light. You want to make sure that you've got enough power in your spring to drive that hammer forward and ignite that powder. Otherwise, if you start clipping springs here and there, you're going to shorten the length of this. The lockup time gets shorter, and you might not have a reliable ignition. If you really wanted to go like you don't have the cash to get the new springs, you can take this spring, and I've done this before, and just put it on your, you have a some kind of your old screwdriver or something, and bring it over to a sander, a belt sander, and just hit it with the belt sander up and down evenly. And you'll take off metal off of this thing, and then buff it. Buff it again, and it'll get nice and smooth. Put it back in the gun, check your spring, your pull. If you think it's too light or too heavy still, go back, do the same thing. Doesn't cost you anything, but I would highly advise against clipping springs. Take this to a sander, take it and just run. As it's running, just have it go over like this. And you'll remove metal, you'll remove material, then buff it, lightly oil it, put it back on the gun and try it out. Otherwise, I wouldn't really do it any other way. Now to reinstall, just as easy. You see, always reinstall the hump up. I'm going to put this guy back in. Slides in just like so. We're going to line up. Oh, one of our things popped out, which is good. Good thing he's in the gun. There we go. So we're lined up. There we go. So we've got that lighter hammer, and man, I'm telling you, that feels really nice. Very light, feels really good. That pull on there is just, the creep is, oh, I gotta tell you, this is not supposed to reduce creep, but it's really smooth. The trigger is really light, action is beautiful. So let's do a quick gauge here and see what happened when we reduced the pull here. So remember, this was about 4 3/4, 5 pounds. This gauge is only as reliable as your steady hand. So let's try this. Alright, so we're at 2 3/4 of a pound, it looks like. Let's try another one. Yeah, 2 3/4 again. That's pretty consistent. Let's try one more. Yeah, This was 2.2 this time. Let's try one more time. Yeah, and we're about 2. This was 2 and 11. So we're averaging 2.5 pounds. So we went from like a 5 pound to 2.5 pound pull. And all we did is replace the little spring right here. And like I said, you could bend these little legs upward if you want to. But if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, if I probably am forgetting something. If I am, I'll put it in the little speech bubbles around there. You'll see on the videos. But this is the way you can do your springs. I mean, there's only 2 springs. Well, 2 main springs in this gun. Your hammer and your trigger spring. And I just showed you how to replace them and a couple of tricks to do them a little bit easier. Like I said, I advise against cutting coils. Take it to a belt sander. Sand it down if you have to. That would probably be a lot better. Because cutting coils, you reduce the lockup time, and it's not good for accuracy. Especially you guys are just getting into the shooting game. You want all the advantages you can get. So, like I said, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, send us a message. Be on the lookout for part 2. We're going to talk about our cylinder and cylinder lockup. Until next time.